The Aurelian Grand Hall shimmered as if carved from frozen lightning. Thousands of crystalline pillars spiraled toward the vaulted ceiling, casting fractured cobalt light across polished gold floors. The chamber was built to humble even the proudest diplomats, a place where the weight of entire civilizations pressed in from every direction. On this day, it held the largest gathering the Concordium had seen in decades. Nearly 300 species assembled for the annual Peace Summit. Humanity's delegation occupied a modest balcony near the center, dwarfed by towering alien entourages draped in ceremonial armor and luminous silks. Most species strutted with the confidence of old empires. Humans, by contrast, arrived with quiet precision, 5 delegates in tailored dark attire, seated with disciplined stillness. Ambassador Elias Ward watched the hall with steady focus. His expression betrayed neither intimidation nor excitement. He observed everything, the inflection of voices, the rhythm of footfalls, the subtle posture shifts among military officers scattered like wary predators around the chamber. The hall radiated political tension, thick enough to taste. A sudden bass tremor rolled across the floor. Conversation died instantly. The towering doors at the far end parted, and General Vierun of the Draxath Dominion entered like a storm breaking through stone. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, his armor a shifting lattice of living metal plates that crawled over his frame like molten iron. Every step boomed. The Dominion soldiers flanked him, helmets sealed, weapons sheathed but visible enough to intimidate. Vierun's crimson eyes swept the hall with unrestrained contempt. Ward straightened subtly. He'd prepared for confrontation, but not one quite this theatrical. The presiding counselor rose from his elevated seat, a slender figure of shimmering silver. General Vierun, the Concordium welcomes your presence. Today's agenda. Vierun cut him off with a single raised hand. Spare the pleasantries. I'm here to address the threat of territorial encroachment. A ripple of concern stirred among nearby delegates. The Dominion never discussed borders without violence trailing behind the words. Vierun pointed one clawed finger toward Ward. The encroacher stands right there. All eyes shifted to the human balcony. Ward rose with practiced composure. Ambassador Elias Ward, representing the Terran Union. If there has been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Vierun's voice vibrated the crystalline columns. Your species expands into sectors the Dominion protected for centuries. And now you plead misunderstanding like cornered rodents. Ward held the general's stare, refusing to shrink beneath the volcanic presence. Our colonies were established in unclaimed systems according to Concordium law. Law, Vierun snarled. Weakness carved into text. Murmurs spread. Some aliens smirked, others watched with fascinated dread. Humanity had joined the Concordium only 6 years prior, barely a heartbeat in galactic politics. Ward replied evenly, if you require clarification, we are always willing to negotiate. Negotiate? Vierun barked a laugh. You hide behind negotiation. You brandish treaties instead of strength. Your kind takes refuge in words because you lack the backbone for war. The insult echoed through the hall like a blow. Ward's fellow delegates bristled, but he lifted a hand to calm them. General, humanity prefers stability. That does not make us weak. Vierun strode across the chamber, scattering lesser diplomats as if they were reeds before a tide. He halted mere steps from the human balcony. His presence loomed like an oncoming avalanche. You prefer stability because conflict terrifies you. My people understand conflict well, Ward answered. Vierun's voice dropped to a growl. Then why do you tremble? Ward didn't tremble. He hadn't blinked in several seconds. But Vierun reached upward and seized Ward's collar with one massive hand, lifting him from the floor as if plucking a leaf. Gasps erupted across the chamber. No one intervened. Ward's feet dangled above the gold railing. His breath strained, but his eyes remained sharp. Remove your hand, he said quietly. Vierun pulled him closer, their faces inches apart. I will remove my hand when your species kneels to Dominion rule. The hall held its breath. Some diplomats looked away, unwilling to witness humanity's humiliation. Ward whispered, "Put me down." Vierun smirked and flung him backward. Ward collided with the railing but caught himself before falling. Pain shot through his ribs, yet his posture remained controlled. He stood straight once more, dusting his sleeve, as if the general had brushed off a minor inconvenience rather than hurled him like a rag doll. Your actions, Ward said steadily, invoke Concordium Article 7. A shocked silence fell. Article 7. The ancient right of challenge. A species accused of cowardice could demand a formal duel to defend its honor. Few dared invoke it. Fewer survived it. Vieron's grin widened. You challenge me? Ward shook his head. Not me. Laughter rippled through several delegations. A few species looked almost pitying. A frail diplomat challenging the Dominion's fiercest general? Impossible. No, Ward continued calmly. Humanity will send a champion. Vieron spread his arms in mock generosity. Send your armies then. I shall enjoy the spectacle. One is enough. Whispers exploded across balconies. Ward turned toward the massive main entrance. Executor, open the gates. The crystalline doors slid apart with a resonant chime. Footsteps echoed, steady, confident, unhurried. Every eye pivoted toward the silhouette framed by the shimmering blue light. A single human stepped into view. No entourage. No armor. Just a dark uniform marked by subtle insignia and a posture carved from absolute discipline. The hall's reaction was instantaneous: shock, disbelief, even amusement. Only one. Someone muttered. Vieron barked laughter so loud it rattled the columns. You insult me further. This is your warrior. Ward's voice carried across the hall with iron clarity. Yes. This is humanity's representative. The figure descended the steps with calm, deliberate strides. His gaze swept the hall once, assessing threats, exits, distances. The air thickened with a strange new energy, quiet, focused, razor-sharp. He stopped beside Ward's balcony. Ward met his eyes and gave the slightest nod. The Marine returned it. The hall fell silent. Ward faced Vieron. General, you wanted a demonstration of human courage. Here it is. Vieron scoffed. A single soldier cannot defend your species. Ward replied softly. If you believe that, then you truly don't understand humanity. And for the first time that day, a hint of doubt flickered behind Vieron's crimson gaze. The Marine stood beneath the fractured azure light of the grand hall, the crystalline pillars throwing shifting reflections across his uniform. Staff Sergeant Mason Hale didn't look intimidating in a conventional sense. He wasn't massive, armored, or glowing with alien bioluminescence. He appeared almost understated, broad-shouldered, mid-30s, calm-eyed, carrying the quiet weight of someone who'd survived too many battlefields to count. Yet every soldier in the hall, regardless of species, recognized the unmistakable aura of a seasoned warrior. It wasn't the walk. It wasn't his stance. It was the stillness, disciplined, deliberate, absolute. Hale approached Ward with measured steps. Ambassador, he said softly. Ward exhaled, grateful for the grounding presence. Thank you for coming. Hale's eyes drifted toward Vieron. The general loomed in the distance, surrounded by Dominion soldiers who wore grotesque expressions of amusement. Hale studied them like he was analyzing terrain. No fear. Only assessment. He returned his attention to Ward. He hurt you. Ward's tone was neutral. Nothing serious. Hale nodded once. Good. Ward lowered his voice. There was no alternative. If humanity didn't answer the insult, 3 systems were at risk. I know. Hale folded his hands behind his back. Tell me the rules. Ward had already memorized the ritual details. Combat unarmed. No weapons, exosuits, energy amplifiers, or implants. Victory is achieved by incapacitation or surrender. The fight must occur in this hall. Hale absorbed the information in silence. Ward hesitated, then said quietly, "You're not obligated to do this." Hale's reply came without a heartbeat's pause. "I volunteered. You told them 1 Marine is enough. I'll make sure it's true." A small smile lifted Ward's mouth, the first genuine one he'd managed since Vieron's arrival. "They think you're walking to your execution." "Let them," Hale murmured. His tone held no bravado, just a steady confidence forged from years of hardship. "I've faced worse." Ward believed him. Humans had seen war long before they entered the Concordium. Some species fought for honor, others for territory, but humans fought with a kind of unbreakable defiance, honed from a history littered with struggle. A new chime reverberated through the hall. The presiding counselor rose again. "As Article 7 has been invoked, the right of challenge will commence. Both parties must prepare." Vieran stomped toward the designated combat platform, a raised circle of polished stone at the center of the chamber. Each step radiated arrogance. Hale rolled his shoulders. "How long do I have?" Ward followed his gaze. The counselors adjusted the lighting, the crystals dimmed to a deep blue. "The rite begins in minutes." "Enough time." Hale stepped toward the platform. Ward caught his arm lightly. "Staff Sergeant, be cautious." Hale met his eyes. "I'm always cautious." But Ward saw the truth. Hale wasn't cautious, he was controlled. There was a difference. A whispering murmur spread through the alien delegations as Hale walked to the center. The Marine's presence unsettled them. Not because of his size or weapons, he had none, but because he moved like someone who'd already accepted the outcome. And because they couldn't read him. Aliens could interpret posture, scent, tone, micro-expressions across countless species, but Hale's silence left them uncertain. Some species hid fear with noise. Hale hid everything. Across the platform, Vieran cracked his armored fists, sending ripples through his living metal plating. "Marine," he boomed, "you were wise to come forward. It will be quick." Hale didn't answer. Vieran tilted his head. Too frightened to speak. Hale's voice carried cleanly across the hall. "No. I just prefer quiet before work." A hum of surprise rolled through the balconies. Vieran's mouth curled. "Work? You believe you're here to work?" Hale lifted his chin the slightest fraction. "That's what this is." The general barked a guttural laugh. "Your confidence is admirable. And foolish." Ward listened from the balcony, pulse steady but mind sharp. He'd chosen Hale for a reason. The Marine was disciplined, unshakable, and frighteningly efficient. Yet even Ward couldn't fully predict how a human would fare against a Draxath war giant in hand-to-hand combat. Dominion physiology was brutal. Dense musculature. Twin adrenal sacs. Bone plating beneath the skin. A species engineered by evolution for conquest. But humans had something different: instinct, adaptability, and the kind of relentless grit that didn't fit neatly into any alien classification. A counselor stepped forward. Both participants, step into the circle. Hale and Vieran entered the ring. The chamber darkened further. Crystals shifted to a violet glow. The air thickened as energy fields locked around the platform, sealing the combat zone. Counselor's voice rang out, "Begin when the sphere descends." Suspended above the ring, a transparent orb of shimmering energy lowered slowly. As it touched the platform's edge, the hall fell silent. Vieran leaned forward. "Marine, before this ends, tell me, why send one when your species has armies?" Hale's reply was almost gentle. "Because one is enough." The sphere snapped fully into place. A deep chime resonated. The duel had begun. Vieran lunged forward with explosive force, faster than most species could track. His mass displaced the air with a thunderous shockwave. Hale didn't move, not yet. He watched the general's stride, the angle of his shoulders, the shift of weight across armored legs. Ward clenched the railing. The first strike would reveal everything. At the last instant, Hale pivoted. The maneuver was subtle, clean, and perfectly timed. Vieran's fist tore through the space Hale had occupied, colliding with the stone platform instead. A crack spidered across the polished surface. Hale stepped behind him, hands loose at his sides. Vieran spun, nostrils flaring. "You dodge well for a creature so fragile." Hale's expression remained unreadable. "You telegraph your attacks." The hall erupted in startled murmurs. Ward's assistants exchanged glances. No one had ever spoken to a Dominion general like that. Vieran's armor vibrated with fury. "You think you understand combat?" Hale's eyes sharpened, steady and unblinking. We'll find out. The general launched another strike, faster than before. Hale slid under the blow, letting it pass overhead by a hair's breadth. He moved with surgical precision, no wasted motion. The question wasn't whether Hale could strike. It was when. Ward could almost sense the Marine's calculations, breathing patterns, balance points, structural vulnerabilities in the living metal plating Vieron wore like a second skin. Hale finally spoke again. Ambassador told them one Marine is enough. I intend to prove him right. Vieron snarled. Then fight, human. The Marine raised his hands, not in a defensive posture, but in a simple, centered stance. His voice carried across the chamber with quiet resolve. I am fighting. The energy sphere hummed. Crystalline walls vibrated. The next moment of combat would decide everything. And humanity held its breath. The chamber held its breath as the two figures circled beneath violet light. The crystalline pillars cast shifting shadows across the combat platform, their reflections flickering across Vieron's armored shoulders. Hale remained centered, breathing evenly, tracking every movement with deliberate precision. Vieron moved first. His charge hit like a shockwave, mass, speed, and raw aggression fused into one unstoppable surge. The general's fist cut through the air with enough force to fragment stone. Hale slid backward, redirecting the momentum with a swift sidestep. Vieron's strike missed by a narrow margin and crashed into the floor again, sending tremors through the platform. Hale exhaled, grounding himself. You're strong, he said quietly. Vieron snarled, I am inevitable. The general spun with surprising agility for his size. His leg swept across the platform in a wide arc. Hale jumped, clearing the strike by inches. He landed lightly, palms open, stance low. From the balcony, Ward watched with a tension that sank deep into his bones. The gap between the fighters seemed small, yet every exchange carried the potential to end the duel instantly. The hall's spectators leaned forward, their expressions ranging from awe to growing unease. Vieron threw another blow, this time using both arms in a crushing pincer motion. Hale ducked under the first strike and stepped inside the second, slipping so close he could feel the heat radiating from the general's armor. He drove an elbow into the exposed joint beneath Vieron's bicep. The impact reverberated through Hale's arm. Vieron grunted, more surprised than hurt. Hale stepped back quickly, avoiding a retaliatory swing. You feel that? He asked. Vieron flexed the arm, irritation flaring. A minor inconvenience. Good, Hale murmured. It's a start. Their next clash erupted with blinding speed. Vieron lunged, one hand outstretched like a claw. Hale pivoted, caught the wrist, and used the general's charge to throw him off balance. Vieron stumbled half a step, a tiny movement, but significant enough to send murmurs rippling across the hall. A Dominion soldier hissed, impossible. Another whispered, humans should not move like that. Vieron recovered instantly, fury igniting in his eyes. He activated his secondary adrenal sacs. His armor pulsed with a deep crimson glow, signaling a biological enhancement the Draxath rarely used outside of full-scale war. The general's voice deepened into a resonant growl. Enough games. Before Hale could reset his stance, Vieron seized him by the chest, lifted him fully off the ground, and hurled him toward the crystal pillars. Hale struck the platform hard, rolling across the polished stone. Pain surged through his ribs. He forced himself up with a sharp breath. The general was already on him. Vieron closed the distance in 2 strides. His fist descended like a hammer. Hale twisted, absorbing the blow against his forearm. The force sent him skidding backward, boots scraping. Ward gripped the railing, breath tight. This was the risk: one mistake, one solid hit, and Hale would be crushed. Yet Hale's eyes sharpened, the familiar clarity of a Marine finding rhythm amid chaos. He wiped blood from his lip and stepped forward again. Vieron shook his head. You humans don't know when you're beaten. We know exactly when we're beaten, Hale replied. That's why we don't stop. He moved again, this time faster. Hale slipped under a wide swing and struck the general's ribs with the heel of his palm. The blow targeted a cluster of nerve points Hale had identified earlier. Vieron's breath caught. Hale hit again, 2-3 times in rapid succession. The general staggered. Silence stretched across the chamber. Hale continued, each movement precise. He struck the inside of Vieron's thigh, then the base of the neck. The general's immense body tensed involuntarily as neural pathways overloaded with pain signals. Vieron roared, enraged and astonished. He swung blindly, but Hale flowed around the blow. He wasn't just fighting, he was dismantling. "Your strength isn't the problem," Hale said between strikes. "Your habits are." Vieron slammed a knee into Hale's side. Hale grunted, forced back, lungs burning. The general advanced, sensing advantage. His hands curled into fists big enough to crush bone. Hale steadied himself. "One more step," he murmured. Vieron took it. Hale exploded forward, dropping low, sweeping the general's leg with a ruthless pivot. Vieron's mass toppled sideways. Hale followed, landing atop him. The Marine drove his forearm beneath the general's chin, pushing Vieron's head back against the stone. Gasps erupted from the balconies. The Dominion soldiers surged toward the platform, only to be restrained by the energy sphere's barrier. Vieron thrashed, armor grinding against the floor. Hale held firm. His knee pinned the general's arm. His other hand pressed tightly against Vieron's throat, limiting movement without crushing. Ward watched, heart pounding. This was the moment that defined the duel. Vieron tried to push himself up, muscles straining. Hale tightened his grip, his voice low and unwavering. "Yield." Vieron spat, "Never." Hale drove his elbow into the joint of Vieron's shoulder. The general cried out, a raw, guttural sound that shattered the room's composure. "Yield," Hale repeated. Vieron's hand trembled, fingers clawing at the stone. Hale pressed harder, not cruelly, but decisively. "It ends here." The general's body tensed, then sagged as pain finally overpowered pride. Slowly, reluctantly, he tapped the platform with his free hand. The signal of surrender. Light burst from the pillars as the chamber's energy sphere dissolved. Councillors rose, stunned. Delegates stared at Hale as if witnessing a myth birthed before their eyes. Hale released Vieron and stepped back, chest rising and falling in quiet breaths. Sweat and blood marked his uniform, yet his posture remained unbroken. Vieron lay on the stone, disbelief etched across every rigid line of his face. Hale looked down at him. "You're strong," he said. "Just not invincible." For the first time in his life, General Vieron had nothing to say. Ward exhaled, knees weak with relief. The hall remained frozen in a silence so complete it felt sacred. A single Marine had defeated a galactic war titan. And with that, everything changed. The energy sphere dissolved into a shimmer that drifted like dust across the platform. Crystalline pillars brightened again, bathing the chamber in steady blue light. The rite of challenge had ended, yet the atmosphere remained suspended in stunned silence. Staff Sergeant Mason Hale stepped back from Vieron, giving the general room. His breathing steadied. Sweat rolled down his temple, mixing with the faint smear of blood on his jaw. He didn't celebrate and didn't look triumphant. He simply stood, a quiet figure in a hall that suddenly felt far too large for the defeated giant lying at his feet. Vieron struggled upright. His armor flickered, its living metal surface glitching in erratic ripples. He stared at Hale not with hatred, but with disbelief forged into something far more complicated. The general had never expected to kneel before a human. A deep voice broke the silence. "General Vieron, do you formally concede?" The presiding councillor's tone echoed through the hall. All eyes turned toward the Dominion leader. Vieron inhaled slowly. His chest expanded with visible effort. He raised one shaking hand and pressed a closed fist to his chest, an ancient Dominion gesture of surrender. "I concede," he said, each syllable roughened by humiliation. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the balconies. Dominion soldiers froze in shock, unable to comprehend what their leader had just done. Other delegations whispered in disbelief, glancing between Hale and Vieron as if the laws of physics had bent in front of them. Hale stepped away from the center of the platform. He didn't look at the crowd. He didn't need the validation. He tucked his hands behind his back again, letting composure settle over him like armor. Ambassador Ward released a long breath he'd been holding since the first strike of the duel. His pulse finally slowed. He made his way toward the platform, his steps measured but lighter than before. When he reached Hale, he stood beside him in silence for several moments. Then Ward spoke quietly. "You did everything I hoped. And more." Hale blinked once, as if the compliment were unexpected. "It's finished," he said. "For now," Ward replied. "But the consequences start today." Up on the council's dais, the presiding members convened rapidly. Their voices blended in a sharp, multilingual flurry. After several seconds, the councillor raised both hands for order. According to Article 7, he declared, the victor's demands must be honored. The Draxath Dominion shall withdraw its territorial claims on the contested systems. A wave of shock washed over the chamber. Delegates who had once dismissed humanity now re-evaluated their earlier assumptions with uncomfortable clarity. Vieron's jaw clenched, but he bowed his head. The Dominion accepts these terms. Ward nodded respectfully. Then humanity acknowledges your compliance. The councillor continued, "Let the record reflect that Earth's representative has proven the Terran Union's right to sovereignty. May this conclusion reinforce peace among the Concordium." Peace. The word held a new weight. Ward stepped closer to Hale, lowering his voice so that only he could hear. "You changed the galaxy's perception of us in one morning." Hale gave a faint shrug. "That wasn't the goal." "What was the goal?" "Make sure they stop underestimating us," Hale said simply. Ward smiled. "Mission accomplished." They turned toward the hall's main entrance as the crystalline doors began to open once more. A corridor of blue light illuminated their path while councillors, guards, and diplomats shifted aside, giving the two humans room. Some watched with respect, others with a dawning sense of caution. A few bowed lightly as Hale passed. The Marine didn't react beyond a steady nod. Ward, however, caught the subtle changes, the recalibrated expressions, widened eyes, tense shoulders. Many species had spent centuries believing humanity was a harmless newcomer. Today, that assumption had shattered. As Ward and Hale moved through the hall, they were approached by a delegation from the Siran Collective, slender beings with translucent skin and silver irises. One stepped forward. "Ambassador Ward, the Collective extends recognition to humanity's capabilities. We wish to discuss potential security alliances." Ward offered a diplomatic smile. "We're open to conversation. Our principles remain peace-oriented." The Siran bowed slightly. "And yet, you defended your honor without hesitation. That is a trait we admire." Ward inclined his head, then continued toward the exit with Hale beside him. Moments later, a new figure intercepted them, Councillor Uthes, representing the Kurlant Clade. His deep voice held a tone of genuine respect. "Ambassador Ward, Staff Sergeant Hale. The Council will require an official debrief, but I wish to speak with you first." Ward stopped. "Of course." Uthes studied Hale. "Your skills are unusual for a species so young." Hale met his gaze calmly. "We learned from a difficult history." "Indeed." Uthes folded his hands. "Be aware that today's events will have long-lasting consequences. Some species will seek alliances. Others," his eyes darkened, "may attempt to test you further." Ward nodded. "We understand. Humanity has no intention of starting conflicts, but we won't be intimidated." Uthes bowed his head. "Your actions have earned the Council's attention. And perhaps their caution." He stepped aside, allowing them to proceed. Ward walked in silence for a moment. "Strange, isn't it?" he said softly. "This morning they mocked us. Now they study every step we take." Hale exhaled. "Respect is often learned the hard way." "So it seems." They reached the outer chamber, where a balcony overlooked Vashara Prime's sprawling crystalline skyline. Sunlight refracted from the towering structures like a sea of shattered stars. The view should have been peaceful, yet Ward sensed tension humming beneath the beauty. He leaned against the railing. "You know the Dominion won't forget this." "They don't have to forget," Hale said. "They just have to think twice." Ward chuckled quietly. You speak like a diplomat. Never, Hale replied. But a ghost of a smile tugged at his expression. Ward's tone turned reflective. When I invoked Article 7, I gambled everything: our reputation, our future, our safety. I knew we needed to stand firm, but I wasn't certain who could face Vieran and survive. You made the right call. You think so? Hale looked out at the crystalline towers. Yes. Humanity didn't win today because I fought. We won because you refused to bend. Ward took that in, surprised by the sincerity behind the words. Hale continued, the general didn't understand us. He thought fear defined weakness. He didn't realize courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting anyway. Ward let the statement settle. You sound like someone who's carried that truth for a long time. Hale didn't answer. Behind them, the hall's doors closed, signaling the end of the summit. Delegates began dispersing, still whispering about the duel. The story would spread across systems within hours. Humanity's reputation, once fragile, was now unshakable. Ward looked at Hale one more time. What now? Hale straightened, adjusting the torn sleeve of his uniform. I'll report in. There'll be paperwork, investigations, analysts trying to understand how a human defeated a domin. Ward laughed lightly. They won't understand. Not really. No, Hale agreed. But they'll remember. Ward extended his hand. Hale shook it firmly. Let's go home, Ward said. Hale nodded. Earth could use some good news. They walked down the glowing corridor toward the dock that would take them back to their ship. Behind them, whispers continued rising within the hall, whispers of humanity's resilience, whispers of a single Marine, whispers of the day a warrior from a small blue world forced a galactic superpower to kneel. And as they stepped into the sunlit crystalline walkway, one final truth settled over Vashara Prime. Humanity had arrived.